mom is like she's the core of the family. She literally is the trunk. She's the giver of life. And if we don't pour life into her and she's running on fumes, everybody's going to suffer. But if we can really give her like strong foundation and roots, those leaves and those branches are going to grow beautifully and everybody benefits.
Welcome back to Keep It Good. I'm your host, Emily. I'm your host, Carly. So last week, we kind of introduced a few of the untold sides of motherhood. But this week, we're going to get a little bit deeper into that. And we have a special guest today, Jaclyn Tanner.
Yay. Yes, we'd love to introduce her. She is the co-founder and COO of Evolving Tree Therapy. And welcome to the podcast, Jaclyn.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and honored to be your first guest.
Yay. This is a little bit of an experiment, guys. Okay. So you're just going to bear with us, everyone included. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but also Maternal Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is why it's really special to have Jaclyn with us today. She is an LPC, and like Emily said, she is the co-founder of Evolving Tree Therapy. So let's dive in, Jaclyn. I want to pick your brain. First off, like so many women struggle with that feeling immediately postpartum of just feeling off. And a lot of times they think maybe this is just how it's supposed to be. You know, we're your first time mom, everything's different. So what are some common misconceptions about postpartum mental health?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. A lot of us go into it and we have no idea what to expect, or you only know the little bits and pieces people tell you. So I think initially our society does us a disservice by just not talking about this and how common it is, how normal it is, and like there's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't make you a bad mom. And postpartum, it can last quite some time. People think right after having the baby, you know, maybe the first 6 or 8 weeks, but it actually has been shown that it can last anywhere 2 to 3 years. So it does take some time. The good news is it usually does get better progressively through those 2 and 3 years. But I often hear women say, you know, it wasn't until my child was 2 or my kid stopped breastfeeding or, you know, now that my child is 3, I actually have my sex drive back. Like stuff like that. And it really is. And, you know, it's interesting because we also, you know, people say postpartum depression, right? That's like the common one that everybody thinks of when you think of maternal mental health, but they call them PMADs, but it's a whole cluster essentially of mental health things that can happen to people postpartum. So, you know, the most common, yes, is the depression. I'd say second in line to that is anxiety. And people don't realize that having anxiety after having a baby can be related to the postpartum. There's also OCD can be really common, prevalent. Believe it or not, PTSD can also happen. So if you have some sort of, you know, traumatic birth or your birth plan doesn't go according to plan or your baby's in the NICU, there's a lot of things that, you know, we don't always plan for when we go in and have this quote unquote plan in place or what we envision it to look like. It doesn't always go that way. And people can really be traumatized from that need extra support. There's also bipolar, which is just really shifting between different states of mood, which is common if people have been diagnosed bipolar before, but it can happen after pregnancy as well. And then I would say the psychosis is the one that we all unfortunately hear about in the news, and people will discount it and say it's not, you know, very common. And it's not statistically, but when you look at just the numbers, even in Connecticut. So if we look at, I think they say it's like 1% or 1 to 3%, something like that. But when we look at all the mothers who give birth in Connecticut, that's about 50 mothers a year in the state of Connecticut alone that could be struggling with the psychosis piece. And again, it's nothing wrong necessarily with mom. It's your body literally goes through the biggest dip in hormones that your body will ever experience. And it impacts us in so many ways.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, you know, because you're saying it can be as long as 2 to 3 years. So, you know, why would that be? Like some people only have it for a couple months and some people might have it longer. Is it hormonal?
It can be.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, it depends too. Breastfeeding can also, I mean, because it continues the shift in hormones. So that can play a part in it. But you also have to look at, all the other pieces of parenting that's also coming at mom. So it's like, yes, she's having this hormonal shift, right? But now she's also responsible for another human being. She might also be working full time. What does her village look like? Does she have people who are jumping in and supporting her? Is she alone? Is she isolated? Did she just relocate for a new job or something like that, where support is so limited? If there's financial strain on the family, sometimes people don't have paid maternity, or it's not equivalent to what they need to survive. That can actually increase your chances of having postpartum. Then you've got the relationship dynamics, like your husband. You go through this huge shift. You birth this child. You're now taking care of the primary parent perhaps, and that completely shifts, and they don't know who you're kind of evolving into, and that can really weigh on a relationship too. Resentments, feeling like they're not doing enough, or feeling like they don't understand why you're not just your normal, chipper, happy self. Because you're sleep deprived and you have a baby that's, has a lot of needs, and you're trying to learn to balance all of this like simultaneously when it's also new to everybody. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. Also, if you've struggled with mental health in the past, that can be a predictor. But also, each pregnancy is different. So sometimes people don't have postpartum with their first and then do with their second, or vice versa. So if you're having your second, third, whatever, and you've had postpartum with a prior pregnancy, that also increases your chances of having it the next
that makes
pregnancy
sense.
around.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I feel like with my first one, I had a little bit of the depression and maybe the anxiety, maybe even the OCD. But after my second with the traumatic childbirth, like definitely the PTSD. I didn't let people drive my babies around for a year, at least. I was just like, I don't know. But now that you're saying it, I'm like, oh, I probably should have talked to someone, because I was like, oh, yep, I had that. Oh, yep, I had that. But like you said, you don't realize that this is not part of what is
Yeah,
the normal.
that's the fear, is the guilt, the shame that there's something wrong with me, that I'm feeling this way, or I'm having these thoughts, when in reality it's pretty normal. They say like 1 in 5 women experience postpartum. They, however, think it's probably closer to like 1 in 3, because it's underreported. People don't want to share how they're truly feeling for fear that something's going to happen. They're going to not let my baby go home from this visit with me, or they're going to send me somewhere and I'm going to be separated from my baby. So oftentimes people don't admit when it's happening.
I feel very blessed. I don't feel like I had much of any of this, but looking back, maybe there was, little things, especially anxiety, but you just kind of deal with it, like, oh yeah, well, I'm tired, and it's just a lot, or the baby's been crying all night long. You just kind of chalk it up to all those things, not like I maybe need a little help. Probably why it's under.
And I think that's like the point of it, is it's such a big scale. You could maybe only suffer minor symptoms of this, or you can go to the extreme, but it's all under this umbrella of these symptoms that really should be talked about more so, I think, before you go into birth, and not just checked up on 6 weeks after.
Well, that's the other piece. There's just such a lapse in care. Like you don't see your actual doctor, mom's doctor, till 6 weeks, unless something bizarre happens, so it's like there's 6 weeks. You're going to the pediatrician, but again, people are scared to truly fill out some of those questionnaires honestly.
Yeah. And I mean, you think about it, I mean, I feel like we're coming a little bit better with maternity leave, but for men,
Paternal.
Yeah, because a lot of like my husband, I think, was home for 2 weeks and then he was just like off to work and I would cry, because I'm like, oh my God, like, how can
Right.
you just leave me? And it's not his
Mhm.
fault. We needed to pay the bills, but yeah, I would really cry. And I was like super sad that he would just leave me because then you're just like,
Well,
shit,
it's so
what?
isolating. That's another
Yeah,
piece of this that people just like don't talk about. It's like you're home and you don't know like the difference between daytime and nighttime. I mean, you do,
yeah,
but everything meshes into one because you're waking up every 2 to 3 hours, no matter what time of day it is,
yeah,
typically. So, it's just it's lonely. Like, and too, like just the sitting and the feeding the baby, and it's so isolating. It's so isolating. And
Yeah.
then yeah, your spouse goes back to normal life, working 40 hours. And now you're like, oh, okay. Like, so I'm like really alone now. Like, I don't even have, the other person in my household. So
yeah. And if you add in winter, you can't even go outside and go for walks. Like that's the part
so
that
hard.
really, really hurt me was 2 winter babies. Like,
Same. I planned that very wrong. Very wrong.
yeah,
We need spring and summer babies up here in New England.
Yes, we do. We do. Just to get outside is, even
Yeah,
if,
yeah.
it's a short walk, it helps. The fresh air helps so much.
So
absolutely.
what's, your business kind of support
Yeah,
with all of
sure.
this?
So yeah, I can explain how Evolving Tree evolved. After having my second child, so yeah, to speak to how pregnancies can be like just so different. My first one, I almost feel like I was like manic. I was like, I got this. I'm doing all the things. I had all this energy and my house was beautiful. It was just like go, go, go. And I really wanted a second baby. And again, just no awareness of how different that could be or how hard it could be. Like I can remember being pregnant with my second and people being like, "Oh, just wait, like it's going to be so hard." But nobody really even offered like feedback or like, these are some ways you could prepare yourself. So I was also like kind of just like, well, that's like not helpful. Like I'm already in this, I'm pregnant, like I can't turn around and
Yeah.
go back.
You're like,
But everyone's just telling me like impending doom, and I was really
yeah,
just like, no, we'll just do two of everything. Like it's gonna be fine.
yeah,
And then I had my second and I was trying to sleep train him and he has sleep apnea. So I was like, trying to sleep train a baby who couldn't be sleep trained anyways. So I'm so sleep deprived and I'm nursing, and my other son was 22 months. So that whole pregnancy with my second, I didn't get kind of the rest and the relaxation and the luxury that you have with your first. Like, you're
yeah,
tired, you take a nap. There's
Mhm.
yeah,
you're chasing after a toddler. I was working full time, so it was just a lot. And then so it's like I'm now taking care of two babies. I'm sleep deprived, and it was really, really bad. I remember going to my 6 week follow up, and the APRN was like, "So how's everything going?" And I literally just like burst into tears. I was just like, I am so overwhelmed. My anxiety's through the roof. I can't sleep at night, and I don't think I disclosed this to her, because of the same reason that other people didn't. But I knew like I needed help because I literally was getting, it wasn't like an intent or a plan, but I was getting visions of hanging myself
Mhm.
in my basement. And it was more, I'm like, trigger warning. I should have said that first. Sorry. But it
it's real. It's real.
was just assigned to, it was almost like a thought of like, well, that's always an option. Like, this is really
Yeah,
fucking hard. And if I can't figure out how I'm going to manage this, like, but many women feel like that. My kids would be better off without me. Or like, I'm not a good enough mom for them. So I just shouldn't try to do this. So, like, I knew at that point I really like had to, I went into that appointment and she upped my antidepressant and she gave me some like anti-anxiety, and she was like, you can take this to sleep, but you like need somebody to watch the baby because you won't be able to like wake up. So thank God, my mother-in-law is a saint, and she took my baby that night and let me sleep through the night for the first time in 6 weeks. And I did. I felt like a new woman. I mean, my symptoms weren't completely gone. I still was very overwhelmed going from one to two, but I just experienced firsthand how difficult this is and isolating. And luckily, being in this field, I obviously believe very strongly in it. So I reached out, I found a postpartum therapist. I started working with her once a week. She was lovely, and really, really helpful. And so, yeah, so I had my own personal experience, and I ended up bumping into a previous coworker at daycare pickup. Our littles were in the same daycare class, and we just started talking and started doing like play dates. And I started sharing with her kind of my experience, and she said, "Oh, me too, like, so hard and all the things." And we were just realizing, like, God, we need support. Mom is like, she's the core of the family. She literally is the trunk. She's the giver of life. And if we don't pour life into her and she's running on fumes, everybody's going to suffer. But if we can really give her like strong foundation and roots, those leaves and those branches are going to grow beautifully and everybody benefits.
I
So
love that.
we had started talking about, we were both therapists, and we started talking about like, what if we created this place where moms could go to be cared for? Like, mom is the one that's caring for everybody else. So what if she can go somewhere and get that care that she's giving all day long to everybody else? And just how wonderful that would be. And also just a safe space to talk about motherhood, because everybody feels guilty saying that, like, sometimes this sucks and it's really freaking hard and I'm struggling. So a place where we can just validate that for you, that like, it's okay. It can be like the most wonderful, beautiful, deep love that you ever experience. And you can also hate parts of it and say that, like,
Yeah.
this is terrible and my life has been turned upside down and I don't know who I am anymore. I just feel like I'm taking care of everybody else's needs, and there's room for it all. It doesn't make you a bad mom. It makes you a real person who has needs, wants, desires, and like, that's okay. And it's okay to take care of yourself and give yourself that gift, like a place where moms can even gather and start to build that community, that village. Because it's also important to find other women in your life who have children within the same, age as your children. Because you might have friends who have kids, but if they're, in middle school, it's like they're so far removed from what it's like to be, home with
Where
a
you're at.
newborn.
Right.
Yeah. So it just helps to have people who are going through the same things.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's mainly moms, but like, do you treat fathers, families in general? Because I've heard, men can get postpartum depression too.
Yeah.
And I've known a few that it happened to. Would you be open to treating men, family?
Yep. So we work with moms. We work with non-birthing partners. We also will work with parents, like as a couple unit. So like couples counseling. And yeah, men. That's another piece of this that, again, just isn't talked about. They say 1 in 10 men experience some form of postpartum anxiety, depression, because their whole life changes too. Like, not only does their partner change, but just their home life changes. And men face a whole bunch of different challenges as well, feeling like they're not good enough all of a sudden, or they're not making enough money, or they're not the provider that they thought they could be, or, they're struggling with, I don't know what to do with this baby. I feel really inadequate, or I don't know how to help and support my wife. Like, I can clearly see she's struggling, but oftentimes men get frustrated and they get angry because sadness and inadequacy is not valued with men in our society. So anger is okay. So oftentimes, like, that's what you see, because they feel powerless, and that can be really hard for a male to admit. So whether it's like getting support for themselves, or even just some kind of, guidance and coaching and reassuring, or even just psychoeducation on what, your partner is going through and how you might be able to help with that, can just be really, really helpful for couples.
I love that. That's awesome that you just treat the family as a whole as well, because
Right.
it really is the unit,
Right. That's
It
what it
is.
is now. Yeah, it's a unit.
Yeah. So you mentioned, anger and all of that. What about the term mom rage? Because I know I get it from time to
Same, same,
time.
same.
Yeah, and then the amount of guilt you feel afterwards, and it's a vicious cycle, right? Because you get to your wit's end, and then you lash out, and then you're
And then you
sad.
feel terrible, and then you feel
Right.
guilty, and you're like, this isn't the person I want to be. Yeah, so that's another part of postpartum that It's not like a diagnosable thing, but is very, very common postpartum. So mom rage essentially is it's needs that aren't getting met. So whether that's I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I'm not taking care of myself, I'm overwhelmed, I don't have an identity anymore. I feel like I'm just giving, 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 and nobody's filling my cup. Like that's where a lot of the resentments come in, and all these unmet needs make us really angry.
Yeah. I always feel like when I get like that sometimes with the kids, it's like I've never been that person. I've never fought with anybody. I've never been in a verbal altercation
Yeah.
before. And now I'm going to have my first ones with my children. Like, what is going on? I've never been so upset with somebody before.
Yeah.
And it's a
Well,
weird,
it's also, I mean,
feeling.
parenting's hard.
It
It's
sure
really
is.
hard. It's incredibly frustrating. I mean, you feel like you repeat yourself literally like 600 times of the same things and like nobody's listening, and
Right.
it's the frustration of like, we're coming at it from a adult, fully developed brain, and these children, they're not, like they won't have fully developed brains for 25 years. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we expect that they're going to listen to everything we say and do what we're asking. And like, that's just not, it's not, developmentally appropriate for them to be able to follow that. And it's just really incredibly frustrating, or
It
especially
is.
when there's other like stressors coming down. Like I know, everybody leaving the house is like just so hard. And it's like, okay, now we're going to be late. And it just, all these other pressures start compiling, as you're rushing or you forget something, that's so common.
Right.
And then you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be judged. I'm the one mom with the kid who I didn't even bring a diaper back. Like, what am I doing? Like it's
Yes.
just like, but it's like, you're human. Like we're all
Yes.
human, and like, it's okay. And it's okay to make mistakes. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad mom. It just
Yeah.
means that you're human, and like there is a lot going on.
What would you say to the mom who does feel guilty or ashamed about having that, kind of experience? How would therapy help them, work through those feelings if they are really stressed? And I mean, my kids are 5 and 8 now, so like I'm dealing with it in a different level of probably past all that postpartum stuff. But
Mhm.
what would you say to someone? Like, how could therapy help them with that?
Yeah, so therapy can really provide you with tools. So coming up with, things that you can do, just to take care of yourself. And sometimes that's setting boundaries or asking for the help that you need, or setting aside and scheduling that into your schedule. But it can also just be, a place to vent and get validated. And sometimes even just that validation can really go a long way to just normalize what we're experiencing.
Yeah.
But there's also a ton of tips and tricks, and, identifying like, when is it that the anger strikes, or what is that around? Are we, it could just be that our environment is chaotic and we're overstimulated. And, with little ones, they're banging the same thing over and over. You've got the TV going, the vacuum going, the washer, the dryer, the dishwasher, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind. Like it's all too much, or the dog barking, it's chaotic.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's very overstimulating. It doesn't bother them, but to us, it adds to like the chaos, especially if we're not, well mentally. So creating, different tools and things that you can do so that you have a little bit more self-control, but that regular self-care also can just help with the baseline. So it's like, if you're feeling better and you're getting your needs met to a certain degree and you're able to take that time that you need, like you are coming at it from a different place of
Yeah.
coming at it when you're empty,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. You need a toolbox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A lot of
absolutely.
times, even just like dividing the load, of the household can be such a relief and kind of, like you said, kind of fix that baseline to begin with. And that default parent role, it kind of happens without even like talking about it, right? It just like you give birth and now all of a sudden you're the CEO of the family. And
Yeah. And everybody's schedule and everybody's existence and their doctor's
yeah,
appointments and their meals and clothing and everything, it just depends on you. So yeah, so that's another piece that I feel like on my journey to creating Evolving Tree that really, I think, was the first time that I felt like so just seen and validated as a mom. I actually had a client come in and he was like talking to me about how things were better with him and his partner. And I said, "Oh, really? What changed?" And he was like, "Oh, we watched this documentary." And I was like, "What documentary?" And he said, "It's called Fair Play. It's on Hulu." And I was like, "Oh." So I went home and I watched it, and it was just so validating. So it talks about the history of women and, you know, our typical family. So if you look back to, you know, the 1950s, mom stayed at home and her goal was to take care of the house and parent the children, and dad was solely for income. Well, as you know, society has changed, women have entered the workforce. The gender roles haven't caught up with where we're at and what the expectations of a mom is. So it's like now we get to do all three. We get to take care of the house. We get to, you know, be the main parent for the children. And then we also get to work full time. And that's just like literally humanly impossible.
Yeah.
And oftentimes mom ends up being the default parent. And this isn't, I want to be very clear, like there are so many dads who are amazing. And this is not like, you know, man bashing or dad bashing or partner bashing. It's more just like we are all raised in the same system with the same norms. And like they're victims of this just as much as we are. You know, like this generation of fathers is so much more involved than even our generation of fathers were.
Oh,
You know, like they're
absolutely. Yeah.
changing diapers, they're, you know, bringing them to practice. You know, sometimes some dads are staying home nowadays. I mean, it's awesome. Like there are huge progress, but there's still oftentimes differences as far as like who's handling what in the household, and that really can weigh on mom, because when she doesn't have help with the parenting and or, you know, the household chores, it's like it's so much, and the mental load of carrying all that. So like just a simple example is like, you know, the toothpaste runs low, and then the next day a new toothpaste arrives, and dad just brushes the teeth, head on his way. Like he didn't think about that, but mom is constantly scanning the cupboards, scanning, you know, making sure, stocking everything, and bringing the kids to the doctor's appointments, the sports, all of it. Like it's so much. So just really talking about how we need a shift. Like we've had such a shift with feminism, which has been amazing, but now it's like this is now the calling. What feminism was for women, this is now the calling of dividing up our household labor and doing it as fairly as we can. And that doesn't always mean 50-50, because sometimes we don't work as much, or our jobs require different things of us, you know? So sometimes maybe it's a 30-70 split, and that works for you and your partner. And, you know, but it's really just like coming together as a team and realizing like, you know, it's not like, what do you need help with? Because we also hate that question, right? It's like, okay, now I have to make a list of everything I need to do that I need help with. Like, you know, you're an adult, like look around, what needs to be done, you know? But really like stepping up and figuring out these are the ways in which you can help our family and contribute. And yeah, I can't scream and say it enough. If you have not seen Fair Play, I think it could be wonderful for couples to watch, but in the very least, as a mom, it's so validating to our experience and just understanding why this is happening, what it looks like. And she also proposes solutions. She has like a whole, she calls it the Fair Play method, but it's essentially figuring out how to divide the household labor. And she has a deck of cards. It's like 100 different things that every household kind of needs to run. And if you own a card, essentially, it's from conception through to execution. So, you know, if garbage is you, that means your wife doesn't think about garbage bags. If we need them, she does not take the garbage out. She just knows that you've got it, you're taking it out, and she doesn't have to think about it anymore. And that relieves the mental load for mom. So the more that dad can take on some of that stuff, then her burden lessens. And it also benefits him. That's the other piece. Like your wife will be nicer, lighter, happier. She might want to have sex with you if she's not so pissed off that you haven't done anything today. You know what I mean? Or like men, oftentimes like the chores and the tasks that they're traditionally do is like, the yard work. So it's a lot of the stuff that gets recognition. People come over and they're like, oh, wow, your yard looks great or whatever, or the different, home improvements maybe. Where mom, it's like invisible labor. Like
You're
she's
right.
doing the dishes and, the laundry and just all those things that like constantly need to be done. It's not once a week she's going out mowing the lawn. She's, dishes and laundries all day long. So it's like, it's this invisible labor too that happens. And I just think there's not a lot of understanding of how much is on women and how heavy and suffocating that can be, and how much, if you can take some of that from her, it will just help you. And it's also too, like, educating that next generation. We want to raise sons and daughters that don't have these gender roles, that jump
Yeah.
in and just want to work together and don't even know who's supposed to handle what. It's like we as a family determine that. So
Yeah.
It's like our generation right now is forming
in the
that
midst,
bridge to like
yeah,
Oh,
get it
how
that way. Yeah.
exciting that is. Like we're literally leading the future in this whole dynamic, and how we raise our kids. But I think a lot of it just comes down to great communication. We have to be open and willing to speak about these things and, to share with our partner, like, look, I can't do everything and still be the happy go lucky and still want to
Right.
jump in bed and, and be your wife, like at the end of the night. Like, because
because
it's
I'm
like,
exhausted.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, my husband's great. I can't really complain. I mean, we have very, open communication. We share everything. We share all the duties and stuff, but I can imagine if, he was the typical like, "Oh, I'm going to go golfing all day Sunday," after you just did everything all week. Like, "Oh, all right. Well, then you kind of build a little bit of resentment, and that's not a good addition to the equation,"
Right.
but it's gotta kind of be equal give and take, you know?
And you both deserve that time.
Yeah,
Like that's another thing. Like we look at as a society, like, men's time is infinite, the golf, all the things that, is considered normal men things, but it's like women don't necessarily have that. Like they think we just have like unlimited time to do all the things. And when we start, valuing, and this goes back to, wages and what we pay women and for the same work as males, I mean, we have a long way to go. We've come a long way, do not get me wrong. We have a long way to go when we start valuing, childcare providers and compensating them appropriately, and valuing stay-at-home moms, because if you add up how much you would pay somebody to do what a stay-at-home mom does, it's a pretty penny. So like she's valuable. We're all valuable and our time is valuable. And if we can respect that in each other, it's only going to help your relationship and create more homeostasis at home. And who doesn't want that? We don't want conflict and resentment. We want everybody to be happy.
Yeah, I mean,
great.
Emily mentioned in the last one, right, when you said, like, mom's everything. She's the CEO. She's the, I don't even know what you rambled off, like the CEO, the event planner, the chef.
The cooker, the cleaner.
Like,
Yeah.
Cruise
Yeah.
director. We always joke about that at work. Like, what are we doing next? Geez, I don't know. Bingo. Like,
Yeah.
what is happening?
The entertainment. Yeah.
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 Everything,
Just the magic. So, yeah, that's why we were kind of influencing men to kind of fill up mom's cup a little bit last week, but this is on a whole other level of filling mom's cup. It's
Can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we get into the mental load of motherhood? Like the mental load that comes with it. It's something that you guys highlight in your practice, what the mental load looks like, and why does it get overlooked?
Yeah. So it's the mental load of motherhood, the constant going that doesn't end. It's like, Carly, you mentioned it last time. You're like, my husband just, his head hits the pillow and he's passed out. And you're like, and I'm planning out my whole next day and who needs what. And it's just, it doesn't ever stop when you're running a household. So, the constant, it's anywhere from figuring out, what supplies we need, what do the kids need for, the special spirit day or spirit week that we
Yeah.
have going on. I mean, the
Yeah.
expectations, I feel like, of parents compared to even just when we were being raised. I mean, people, I feel like, threw together little birthday parties, and not that they weren't very special, but like, I mean, what we do for our kids now is, it's so much more elaborate, so there's
Yeah.
just so much more, I think, planning that goes into it. And then you add in the technology, which can be such a blessing, but it's also, it also adds sometimes to a lot of this too, of, what we need, what things cost, just to, function in a normal day society. But yeah, I mean, it can go anywhere from just, stocking the house to running the household, to what are all the things that the children need, getting them to all their doctor's appointments, their dentist appointments. If you have a child who has special needs and has therapy appointments or treatments or whatever, I mean, you're coordinating everybody, and the childcare. If you're working and you're not the one that's doing all the running around, it's who's coordinating, who's picking them up at what time and getting them to, do they have, everything in their lunchbox? They're, oh, I forgot to send a drink, or, oh, they got sent to school today without a coat, or, I mean, I could go on and on and on. It just, to,
Yeah.
all
I
the
know.
improvements around the house, the projects, it's just, it's so much. And I don't think we give women enough credit for all that they do, and the weight of all that they do, and the exhaustion. Like, it's so much. So really being able to name it, acknowledge it, talk about it, and find ways to also, like, heal from it, find solutions, find, what's your values, what's important. You don't have to do all the things because that's what social media is telling us to do. Like, what's important to you and your family, and what if you weren't to do all the other things that you don't value or don't align with your values? And, like, how can we simplify this and make it better for you and more manageable for you?
Yeah, that's great. I feel like I need to book a session with you.
Where do we
Uh,
sign up?
Yeah.
yeah. Check, 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 check. So what about, like, I know a lot of, like I said before in the last one, you lose your identity a bit as, when you become a mom. And I just recently started getting back into my hobbies and things that, like, pulled out that past side of myself. And I know that made a huge difference for my personal self. Like, is that something that you kind of encourage in your
Yes, it's
practice?
another, um, piece of evolving. And that's one of the reasons for the name Evolving Tree Therapy is, mom's the tree of life. But motherhood truly calls us to the table and to stand up and continue to evolve as a human being, and also evolve as a woman and a mother, and all the different roles that we have in our life. And, um, really getting back to figuring out, like, what is my identity? Because it gets so lost in early motherhood. And as much as, motherhood is part of our identity, it's not our only identity. And it's okay to have interests and hobbies and things that make you feel like the you that you knew before you had kids. Like, that is okay. It's okay to want those things. It's okay to want free time, to be able to, I don't know, walk into a store and not have to carry in two children. I mean, like, it's like
Yeah.
the
Oh my God.
simplest
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
but once you have kids, it gets so complex, and, like, nothing's just easy anymore. So really being able to explore that. And I also will, ask clients, well, who do you want to be? Like, your workload has nearly doubled, if not tripled. And, you know, who do you envision yourself being? Like, what's important to you? Because that's part of it, is we do continue to evolve and change. And who we are today isn't who we are 10 years ago or pre-kids, but who do you want to be? I think that's the beauty in life, is, like, we can choose. to a certain degree. You know, of course, there's our innate characteristics and things that interest us and don't and whatever, but we can also continue to evolve and change and rediscover ourselves and find ourselves in motherhood. You can have it all. Like, you don't have to change into that frumpy mom or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, you know, where it's like,
Yeah.
my only existence is to cater to everybody else. It's like, no, you will be able to be a better mom when you're able to fill some of your own needs, because you're not pouring from an empty cup, you know?
Totally. That's, yeah, I feel that way big time. Your cup needs to have some fluid in it if you're gonna
Yes.
give to everybody else. Yeah, can't pour from an empty cup for sure. So, how can talk therapy, like, what we're doing now, because I feel great.
I feel fantastic.
now.
Thank you.
This is great. How can talk therapy like help guide someone through this transformation? Because, when I look back at becoming a mom, it feels like a blur. Spots I don't remember, right? And I do feel like I'm still the same person. Clearly, I'm probably not. I might have a more sense of self, but like, how, if someone really does feel like, geez, I'm just not myself, and I want to feel that girl again. I want to, what's like, how could you guide them through that? Can we give our listeners some tips?
Absolutely. It's, I feel like we do a whole bunch of different things. It of course depends on the client and what they're identifying they want to do. But I think it's a lot of just, it's listening, it's exploring, it's allowing them to genuinely talk in a safe space where, like, I'm not going to judge you. We all have intense feelings. We are all complex beings. Like, it's okay to say that, things suck, or you don't like this, or you hate this about yourself, or you really wanted to love motherhood and you're really just finding yourself really resentful about it. And, like, there's room for it all. And it's okay to say those taboo things that society tells us it's not okay to say. And really just creating that space and the work that you can do. Like, I also say, like, it's almost a gift to give yourself that 1 hour that you're going to carve out once a week. That's just for you, like, whatever it is that you want to talk about. This is your hour to talk about anything. And, a lot of it, yeah, it's exploring, it's coming up with solutions, it's identifying, like, what is important to you? What do you want to be important to you? How do we align what our actions are with those values or the outcomes that you're looking to do? How do we set boundaries with family members that are being too pushy, or, pushing you in a direction that you don't want to be in? Or how do you ask for help? What are you doing to take care of yourself? Who are those people in your life that's important to you? Like, we work with kind of a spectrum, a range. So we'll work with people who are like preconception. So, like, somebody who might just be like thinking about getting pregnant and wants to explore that, or maybe they didn't imagine themselves having kids and all of a sudden, they turn 39 and now they're having that anxiety and they want to, like, explore that, to, people who maybe have experienced pregnancy loss, to infertility, people going through the infertility process and how hard and challenging and emotional and sad that can be, through to people who are currently pregnant. I think that's an awesome time to come to therapy, because it also gives you a space to talk about some of this stuff before you're actually in it. To create a plan. And it doesn't mean that because we create a plan, it's going to be what the plan is. But the important piece is, like, having these conversations, like, who is your village? Who's going to do the meal train for you? Who can you call when you are sleep deprived and losing your mind, and this baby's screaming and you don't know what else to do with yourself besides walk away? Like, who are those people for you? Who's going to handle what? Like, when the baby comes home. I mean, we spend so much time, I feel like, talking about what the nursery is going to look like and where we're registered and what, car seat's going to work best. But, like, we don't talk about who's going to be washing the dishes and who's getting up and changing the baby. And, like, those things are just as important, if not more, to talk about and plan for and think about, like, as part of your kind of birthing plan. So we work with those families. We work with, once they give birth, and then we essentially will work with people up until, we call it like parenting littles. So like anybody who has a kid like 5 or below. So really, the people who are in the thick of it, and how can we help them feel rooted and grounded and give them some tools so that life doesn't have to be as painful as it is when they make that phone call that they need some support.
Yeah, it's kind of like well, like you said, like pre-planning or preventing
Right.
that to take place. I wish I knew you when I was going through it, because honestly, like, I'm not in the thick of it now, but when I was struggling and I was hiding it, and I was not vocal with, even my husband. Like, yeah, I mean, he would kind of see that he would come home and I looked like I'd been crying, and he kind of got it, but it was not easy. It was not easy, and I wish I was more brave to like share it, because it is, I think a lot more women go through it than we realize. And you just have to know, like, you're not alone. You're
Right.
not the only one who feels this way. There is help out there. Um,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
that's
and
essentially, it really gave me a purpose and passion and, desire to create this space for other
I love
moms.
that.
I wish I knew Me Too, because I didn't even think about those things, but now
Yeah,
that I've done all this training to specialize in this, I'm like, gosh, there's so many things we can do. And like, why is this not just like the standard of care that, like, you
yeah,
go to your OB and she's like, oh, okay, here's the evolving tree. They're going to help you set up a plan for you and your husband for when the baby comes home. Like,
I
start
yeah,
know.
talking to
That
them,
is
you know?
genius. Absolute
yeah.
Right?
genius.
Like, we think about all
Incredible.
the other things, how we're going to pay for things, what daycare they're going to go to, but we don't talk about our relationship or how our mental health is going to change once we bring a
Yeah.
baby into this world. So
Oh, you're incredible. I love you.
I
And
just want to hug all the mamas. I just want to
I
give them so much love.
I
They
know.
deserve it, and so much recognition.
I
thank you
know.
so much for sharing your story too with us,
Yeah.
to be vulnerable. And, just because you do the therapy doesn't mean that you're not going to go through it. Right.
Yes, yes, we're people too.
That's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I think.
It's
And that's the
but
thing.
serendipity.
It's like, here I am, a therapist, and I'm going through postpartum. And like, I was like blindsided. I didn't expect that because I didn't experience it with my first one, So I do this day in and day out, and I was blindsided. So if I'm blindsided, there's a lot of other mamas out there who are too.
Absolutely. But it gave you that that experience. So now you really know what you're talking about. And whoever comes and talks to you, they're going to immediately know that, like, you get it.
Mm-hmm.
You hear them. You've been through it. There is zero judgment. And I love that, because really, I mean, the best teachers are the ones who actually went
Mm-hmm.
through it. I love when, like, your OB's a guy and he's like, oh, yeah, so you're going to feel this. And you're like, what? How do you even,
Yeah.
who are you?
Like, you've never even carried a child. Like, yeah, you studied
Yeah.
it. I'll give you that. But
Yeah. No. No, I just love you and everything about this whole, all of it. And I really hope that if there's any mommies out there that are in the thick of it, to reach out. So, like, how can they get a hold of you, Jaclyn?
yeah, so the best way is just to check out our website. It's just evolvingtreetherapy.com. On there, there's an appointment request. They can just, enter their information, and I do all the intake calls and the pairing with my therapists that work for us. And yeah, it's a very easy, simple process. We're really flexible. So we do have locations in the northwest corner of Connecticut, so Torrington, Winsted, and Canaan. We also can treat anyone virtually in the state of Connecticut. And honestly, for moms, virtual is like a godsend. It just makes it so much easier you can just kind of run out, lock yourself in the car, or the
Yeah.
garage, or whatever works, to get your time. But you can really take the call from wherever, and we'll meet you wherever you're at, and whatever we can do to help and support. And it's the gift that continues giving, because you're giving the gift of a healthy mom to your kids.
Yeah.
Oh, I have goosebumps.
Oh, I know.
It's so good. It's so good.
So we gave Jaclyn the honor of picking our weekly quote, and I think it's just phenomenal. So what do you got for us, Jaclyn?
Okay, so no one even mentioned it in 9 whole months. Not one person said, You're about to meet someone entirely new, and it's not your baby. It's going to be you.
I'm not crying. You're crying. Okay.
I know.
I'm not crying. You're crying. That's like mic drop.
I
Oh my
know.
goodness.
I
Jaclyn, it's
know.
been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being our first guest on our podcast. This was
Thank you for
incredible.
having me. This was lovely.
Oh, you're amazing. You're incredible inside and out. Such a lovely person. Anyone who is out there, reach out. Get the help that you deserve because you're not alone. There are other mommies just like you, and you can get through this. So I hope everyone has a really great week, special week. Fill your cup, moms. And as always, keep it good.